Hi, my name is David Barrett, and I've devoted my life to the education of blues harmonica. Well, I first started off playing the saxophone and then played trumpet, and by then, about age 14, I was kind of done with the school band thing, and I still had a desire to stay with music. I'm not quite sure what made me choose the harmonica. I think the portability of it, to be able to throw it in your pocket. In that day, there was no iPods, so if you wanted to make music, you had to do it, you know. At least in a portable type of way. So that image of being able to whip out the harmonica and playing in a situation I thought was pretty cool. So I went to my local music store, bought a HOHNER blues harp, bought a book by Mill Bay Publications. It was written by Phil Duncan. It was a well-written book. I enjoyed playing it, and I felt like I had a knack for it. But my real deep love of the harmonica started when I heard blues for the first time. It was in a movie called Crossroads. And when I heard the sounds coming out of the harmonica, it just really captured me. I had a little tape recorder and I put it up to the speaker of my TV set to capture all the harmonica parts in the movie. And I went in the back room and rewind, play, and soon figured out there was more keys of harmonica than the one I had. Went to my local music store again and bought multiple keys, and that really started my journey of digging into blues harmonica. And there was a local antiques place right across the street from my school. Being a young kid and a little naive to the world, I was thinking blues music, old black musicians, so in my mind that was antique store. And I didn't even think to go to a local music store to buy what I later found out was great harmonica players in my area. So I went to the Lost Mine Antiques, and I would always thumb through each week, would spend my allowance going through the records and finding anyone holding the tin sandwich. Or I remember the old guy would be cleaning the records over there and asked him what he recommended, what's new in that week. I was very fortunate at age 16, so I played for a couple years on my own, just really working from the LPs. Kind of interesting now how a lot of players will tend to start with the newer players and then go towards, you know, the classic guys like the Little Walters and such. For me, I had no choice because I wasn't aware of anybody else except Little Walter and Sonny Bill Williamson and these traditional players. So my early schooling, at least the first couple of years, was all the masters. And when I went to a local blues festival, it was my first time ever seeing blues live, I came exposed to Gary Smith, and my jaw just dropped and hit the floor, and was amazed with his playing style. And I noticed that the musicians in the back would go out the gate and go get their fried chicken and come back in. I says, all right, I'm going to camp out near that gate, and I'm going to ask him to give me some lessons. And so I did that, and he first said, no, you know, students start up and then do a couple lessons and they stop. And I just begged and pleaded with him, please, Mr. Smith, take me on as a student, I'll be a good student. And he finally said yes. So Mom paid half the tuition, I paid the other half, drove up about an hour to take lessons once a month for 7 months. And what Gary gave to me is he took me to that next level, and my technique skill introduced me to some techniques that I maybe would have not figured out on my own, and took me to that next step in my playing. I remember early on in my teaching, when I started teaching when I was 18, that I wanted to give other players the opportunity that Gary gave to me, because there wasn't books on blues harmonic at that time, and that's actually what got me started into writing books. So Gary Smith was really instrumental to not only teach me different facets of the instrument, but also introduce me to the local music scene, and playing jam sessions and also local harmonica blowouts. When I turned 18, started going to college for music, and I thought it would be a good way to make some money to work my way through college, to teach harmonica, because there was no harmonica teachers. And I remember the owner of the music store, local music store, says, if you're ever interested in teaching, we could use somebody, because there's always someone asking for it. And I started teaching, and the challenge was there was no written material for blues harmonica at that point. Kumbaya, When the Saints Go Marching In, basic movement around the instrument was available, but nothing like the music style that I was playing. So most of my time was spent developing material or figuring out really what was happening inside of my mouth to be able to teach that to other students. Our two great techniques on the harmonica, tongue blocking and bending, all happens inside of the mouth. So it took me down a real interesting path of discovery of how I create these sounds, and also how the great artists of our present and past created those sounds. And I started writing material for my students. And actually, one of the places that I taught at, instead of giving lessons on the fourth week, we would do workshops. And what I decided to do is each month for these workshops that students would attend is I'd write a chapter on a given technique and really put a lot of work into it. And at the end of that year, and we're talking now, 19, early 20s. So at that time I was 19 years old, and I was basically finishing up my first book, Building a Harmonica Technique, and I shopped it around to different publishing companies, and Mel Bay Publications picked it up, and my first book released when I was 21 years old with Mel Bay Publications. And that started my journey really towards the publishing world now. I now have over 60 books with Mel Bay Publications, and also led into the Harmonica Masterclass workshop. In 1994, I felt there's a scene in my part of California, which is the San Francisco, San Jose Bay Area, and there's really just a wealth of great blues harmonica players. So I felt, instead of just having my students have the opportunity to work with me, I want to give them the opportunity to hear insights from other harmonica players. So in 1994, I did the first Harmonica Masterclass workshop. And it was really the first workshop out there to really dedicate itself towards the education of diatonic blues harmonica. And it was very successful, and that started a journey over those years of doing workshops all around the world, and having from small groups to very large groups. After that, I opened School of Blues in 2002, the first school dedicated to the instruction of blues music. And what's great about the school is not only do I have a home base where I teach my harmonica, but we also have guitar instructors and bass instructors and drums, and it gives my students the opportunity to network and work with other musicians. In 2009, I started the website bluesharmonica.com, and that gave me the ability to reach players all around the world, and for players to really dig in and learn from both the video, the audio, the PDF, and the wonderful world of what the internet has to offer today. In the early years, it was all about discovering technique. What does our mouth do to create these different sounds? And it wasn't only how do I do it, but codifying it by saying, how do all these players do it? And that came through a lot of careful listening, a lot of transcription. One of the benefits of having the Harmonica Masterclass workshops through all these years was the ability to pretty much work with every living legend of blues harmonica, work with them in a workshop format and perform with them on the stage. But mostly a lot of really intent listening and working with students with these techniques. The challenge for the harmonica is a common phrase is it's one of the easiest to play, but one of the hardest instruments to master. Well, I think all the instruments out there to master requires a lot of focused attention. One of the challenges of the harmonica is that you can't see what's going on. The tongue is responsible for all good and evil on the harmonica. If something sounds thin and whiny or is you're buzzing or creating some problems, it's not the harmonica, it's because of where the tongue's located. In reverse of that, when you have big tone and when you have good bending control and you have all these options of textural elements on the harmonica, it's all caused from the tongue. So the challenge is, like a vocal coach, to come up with different ways in which to demonstrate and also help a student visualize what's happening inside of the mouth. One of the challenges of playing blues harmonica is, if I was to put on a CD, track 5, random CD, random player, one lick that's involved literally contains just tons of technique. When I play that 3 blow, that's a slap. My lips are over 4 holes. My tongue slaps down on the 3 holes to the left. So you get a chord that is leading to a single note. And then there's a dip, which is caused by me tuning my mouth to a pitch slightly lower than that 3-drop pitch and then allowing it to raise up. And then a pull. The tongue covers all the holes and plucks off to create a shadow of the 4-draw, a more rhythmic or just a shade of the original pitch. Then you slap the 6, and then you flutter the 5 by placing your tongue on and off the harmonica. So the great benefit of the harmonica, or its greatest blessing, is in its ability to make so many different sounds. And the list goes on. In its greatest blessing is also its greatest challenge, to recognize how the heck is that player able to create that sound. So the wonderful thing is, we're now in the golden age of education. And through the ability of the internet for this small dedicated group of musicians to be able to communicate, that was huge for the harmonica world. I think there's always been a lot of harmonica players. We're just more aware of them now. When I started doing workshops years ago, I realized there are really great harmonica players around every corner. We just didn't know about each other. So now, being in the golden age of harmonica education, we can say, and I don't know if I could say this, say 6 or 7 years ago, that there are no more mysteries on the harmonica. Educators like myself, Joe Filisko, Dennis Grunling, Steve Baker, of course, we really have figured out all the different techniques. Now the art is in how to imbue those techniques in a cohesive educational format that doesn't give someone such a strong roadblock into those next levels of study. To me, HOHNER Harmonicas was always synonymous with the best of the harmonica world. And to have a relationship with HOHNER Harmonicas, to be able to participate in their events and also have a voice in the future of the instruments, and to really have a quality instrument for my students to play is invaluable.